All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us for the third quarter meeting for 2023, and happy August. It's like the summer is flying by. I don't know if everyone else feels that way, but wow, just cruising by. So hope everyone's having a good, safe summer and getting some time off to enjoy that summertime. So today it's going to be the usual lineup with Sherry, Will, and I giving you updates. As you can see, we don't have a ton of slides today, so I don't think we'll take the full hour, but we'll go through, I'll talk about project updates. Will Trimble will talk about any toolbox or kind of data processing related updates. And then of course, Sherry will provide any updates to GeoMSAG and training and kind of future direction on data. All right, so just a few updates kind of program wide. For the Kansas hosted solution, I've showed you that map, I don't know how many times, of how many PSAPs, which are essentially across state, mostly counties that are on the hosted solution. Well, we're getting pretty close to the state being just divided into two solutions. In August, when Marshall joins the Kansas hosted solution, and then in September and October timeline when Brown and the Horton PD joins the hosted solution. After that, and so in other words, by the end of 2023, all the Kansas PSAPs will be either on the Kansas hosted solution or part of the MARC region, which is pretty amazing that we're just kind of evenly divided that way. So the MARC region, of course, as y'all know, makes up, really the Kansas City metro area, several counties on that side, as well as on the Missouri side. But as far as Kansas goes, everyone will be either on the hosted solution or part of the MARC region. So that certainly simplifies things for us for knowing who's using what for their 911, their next gen 911 solution, and helping support all of our PSAPs across the state. So that's really exciting news. Really, the last two to convert over are Marshall and Brown. So excited to have them on board here soon. In other news related to Kansas hosted solution, as you all know, we use the Rapid Deploy Radius as our call handling software, call handling mapping software across the state for the hosted solution. They have a new version coming out, which I think I told you about how we've been evaluating, giving feedback. So Sherry, Will, and I, as well as Ken Nelson, are on calls regularly with the vendor, talking about the upgrades, how we're going to migrate over, what needs to be done, making sure all the GIS services and everything are set the way we want them to. So we're working with Rapid Deploy right now on finalizing that migration plan. I don't think it's not going to be a huge change for the dispatchers. Their layout and map view and everything is essentially staying the same. They're getting a couple new tools, which I think they're excited to see, a map markup tool and a measurement tool. So we're still working on the whole migration plan, but we anticipate that upgrade will begin sometime by the end of this month. So in case you visit your PSAP and they're like, oh, look at this new stuff we got, or this change that occurred, that's why, because version 5 is on the way. And we've been very careful in making sure it has everything we want it to do in the migration. So we're excited to have that roll out here pretty soon. Just always a general data plug. We have not pushed these over yet, but very soon, if you're a PSAP or member of a PSAP or a data steward that has approved, gosh, I think it was like a year ago, we sent out a request to share the address points publicly. And then I have more recently a request to share road center lines publicly. We're trying to get the last few responses on the road center line request. We still have, I think there's about 11 PSAPs that have not responded. So we're trying to get their final answer on that. But once we have that, if you approved those requests, we'll be converting that data, well, not converting, but making the data available on the DASC hub for public access or download. And there's still a number of PSAPs that choose not to share their data publicly or would prefer you reach out to your organization for any data requests, and that's just fine. So we honor whatever your response has been. But I think we'll be for the address points, we'll have over 80 PSAPs that have agreed to share their address points publicly, and road center lines are real close to that too. I think we're at 79, That's why I'm trying to follow up with the last few to make sure of what their decision is. So we do have a few that have decided not to share it publicly, like I said, and still want those requests to go through their GIS department or whatever organization they have set up, and that's totally fine. But this really stems from the ongoing requests for data, especially from you name it, you know, anyone that is supporting some sort of a navigation system or delivery service, or even those organizations that fall kind of a little outside of the box. Maybe they're not with the school district, but they're with a organization that supports school district busing and routing or things like that. So we just continuously get questions about, can we get a hold of the data and is it public? So this is what we figured is kind of our first step. Let's ask you if we can make it public, and for those that say yes, we'll put it out there, and then at least it'll reduce the overhead for the request, and then it'll narrow down who they have to contact directly for the data. So look for that to be released on the Dask Hub site in the next few months. And just another reminder, data in general, nothing about the address points and road center lines, but just a reminder that optional data that's considered optional as part of the Kansas NG911 data model, like city boundaries, is still really important. All that data appears on the maps that the dispatchers look at for 911 calls. So even though it's an optional data layer, that's still vital. It still appears on the map, and we still really need you to submit updates for that data. So just keep that in mind, that all of the data eventually is shown up on the 911 map, and is still really important for the dispatchers to kind of assess the situation and make sure someone's getting the help they need. In other data news, so thanks to the 911 Coordinating Council, we'll be doing another statewide imagery acquisition. I put 2024, 2025 on there because we got really lucky the last two acquisitions. As y'all know, Kansas is a huge state. And we've gotten lucky the last two acquisitions that they were able to capture the entire state in a single flying season. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. So we always kind of just wait to see how the weather cooperates, if there's snow on the ground, when things start greening up. There's just so many factors. We always joke there's about, I think 5 days that are good to fly for leaf off imagery acquisition in the state of Kansas. So we're working with Surdex again. They've always done a great job. They'll acquire what they can, but there's a very good chance the imagery acquisition could be split into 2 different years, but we'll keep you all updated on that. We're just getting ready to have our kickoff meeting with Surdex to talk about the details, so we'll definitely keep you in the loop on that. It'll once again be leaf off, 1 foot resolution. The target flying season is that late January, February, early March timeline. And with that, again, since this is a kind of an extension of our contract with Surdex, the local buy-up option is still available. So if anyone's interested in acquiring imagery at a better resolution, or even just for your cities or anything like that, get in touch with me, and I'll put you in touch with our contact at Surdex, and they can work with you on sorting out the area and a quote for that information. So more to come on that very soon. Okay, with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Will to talk about the toolbox.
Thanks, Eileen. Hope everyone's having a good summer. I appreciate you all being here. Yeah, so we got a new version of Toolbox that's released. Thank you. The intention was to issue this last quarter, but we ended up delaying it a little bit. I needed to do some additional quality control in the results for one of the changes in our address point geosite overlap check. I'm really happy with the changes. We got some feedback from some people using it after we went live with it to differentiate some of the error messages between the road center lines and the road center lines versus address points, which I think was really good feedback. And so we were able to implement that. We just had to do a little extra testing to make sure we were getting the results we were expecting. So we got a little bit late in the quarter, and rather than push it out late and have some people right at the very end have to deal with something that looked different than what everybody else had. We just decided to wait till this quarter to release that. So that should be coming out Monday, and will be accompanied with the usual updates to the story map with a lot more detail about what these different changes include. But it's mostly just housekeeping related things. There's some changes to check-in for blank values, which only affect, I believe, 2 PSAPs, and I think 90% of that was in 1 PSAP. We're going to change the way the field value check results are for the address point UMSAG overlaps. And we're also fixing an issue with copying your data to a new template that somebody was able to identify as a result of some of those address point UMSAG checks as well. But that, and then we had one minor addition for what Eileen had touched on, where we have some new PSAPs coming on the host solution, and there's some hard-coded values in the toolbox that we had to change to add some additional domains and deal with the multi-server PSAPs. That change is live on the server, but it doesn't show up on the individual PSAPs end, and so we're just going to resync that so they don't have to ignore those errors. And a couple things in the future releases are some longer term things are the MSAG check TSP-TN list and ArcGIS Pro Sport. We just recently got some feedback from Ellis and William Wallace, so thank you for reporting that about the relation to ESNs and the address point to MSAG overlap check. So that's something that we'll push out in Q4 unless I can get it in this week. But it shouldn't be something that's come up as far as I know up to this point, and we were able to do a workaround that is also a viable solution. Just to so that's something we'll put in and make sure it's there and working. And the last note, just the data quality reminder. We're trying to throw these in on occasion just to refresh some things that we're seeing in data and projects we're working on. Eileen touched on some of the things with like municipal boundaries and parcels. So a lot of times we're working with statewide data sets, and the municipal boundaries in particular, we have a couple different data sources coming in, and we're trying to rectify which one's the most accurate, which one's the most recent. And we're just noticing that in a lot of cases in the 911 data we're receiving, that last update field isn't being populated. So if you don't have that set to locally edit or track, when you make those edits, you know, it's good practice to make sure you also go in there and just modify that last update field so that if people are looking at your data, they have an idea of when that boundary was last modified. So even if you're only making a spatial edit or an attribute edit, we want to try and update that last update field as well. This increases our data usability and accuracy and allows us to pull data from multiple places and just rectify the best version. So just a reminder to kind of look at that attributes when you're doing data edits, and we'd appreciate any help in keeping that up to date. And last but not least, yeah, there's my contact information, link to the story map, which again, for the last couple of toolbox releases has got a lot more detail about what's happening in the toolbox and why we're doing it, how some of the tools work, a little more in-depth discussion about anything that might be relevant to changes in the toolbox, and probably more information than is necessary. But it's always nice to have the details of what's going on behind the scenes and why we're making the changes we are as we push them out to you. So thank you.
All right. So I'm going to start with map discrepancy reporting today. Basically, just a quick reminder at the beginning that map discrepancy reporting is a function inside the radius map that allows telecommunicators to put in a report if they believe that they're seeing something wrong on the map. They do report issues with locally maintained GIS data where maybe address corrections or missing addresses or road name issues need to happen. But they also report problems with the map services, like layers that are not working or not updating. And one of the ones that we've received a couple of reports about recently have to do with map service that shows the mile markers on highways. They came to use that very quickly. And when it is not working, they notice. And so we are doing some things in the background to make sure that that data is always available to them. And thanks to Will for all the work that has gone into that project. But the map discrepancy report is there for them to report things like that so that we're aware of them. We get copies of all of those reports, and you should get copies of them for the PSAPs where you are registered as the data maintainer. But those reports have also taught us a few things. One of them is that understanding how cell phone location technology works would help the PSAPs understand what they're looking at and understand when it's not really an issue with the GIS data or with the mapping application. It's an issue with just how cell phone location works. So we've taken the opportunity to hop on the PSAP administrators call and do some training there. And there's recordings of that available for PSAPs. But we're also planning a CAM session on how location technology works. And I encourage you all to attend. This is a topic that not very many people are excited about, but I am. So I will be talking about it. And if you are interested at all in how callers are located, particularly on cell phones, I will be going over that in the CAM session and looking at it from a GIS perspective. So I encourage you to be there just to understand kind of how all of this stuff works together, but also so that when you receive a map discrepancy report that maybe doesn't make as much sense as you would like, that maybe understanding that location technology will help a little bit. So just a couple of quick data model updates. The version 3 of the Kansas data model is ready to be discussed with the GIS committee once the data is set for our next meeting. And Ken is very close to sending out date checks for that to the committee. So those of you committee members I see on the call, keep an eye out for an email from Ken on that. There are not a ton of potential changes. Of course, we won't know for sure until the committee meeting happens, but some good stuff to kind of get us in line with the currently published national data model. That national data model is version 2, and currently Nina is working on version 3 of the national data model. The work is ongoing for that. It started earlier this year in April. It is likely to be ready around next summer, but that really depends on a few things. And really the big things that are going to be changing at the national level are to adjust for the needs of 3D call location. So knowing where somebody is in the world matters, but if you have a multiple story building, knowing which floor they're on or approximately which floor they're on matters a lot too. But obviously that changes the needs of the GIS data. So there are some adjustments there. Also, there is going to be an alternate version. So the national data model looks somewhat similar to ours right now, but there will be an alternate version that is relational. And if anybody is a real relational data nerd and wants to talk about that, I'll be more than happy to take it offline, but I won't put everybody else to sleep. So those two efforts are ongoing. We'll let you know when there's more to know. And then I wanted to give everybody an update on something that happened at the last council meeting, and just kind of give you guys an idea. So one of the requests that has come in ever since we moved to the Radius application is a request that the information that is displayed for the telecommunicators on the Radius application be available in the field. And the company Rapid Deploy that creates the Radius map is getting ready to come out with a mobile app that can consume the same kind of data and communicate back and forth with the map in the 911 center. So that app is still under development. It is expected to be initially released in December of this year or January of next, but the council has approved the purchase of the app with unlimited licensing statewide. So unlimited means that whatever first responders, police, fire, EMS might be interested, as long as they in their PSAP are kind of in line with that, will end up with access to the license should they want it. So the thing is, that's all down the road. We are planning a very, very slow rollout for this, because there are an awful lot of moving parts. For example, in December, January, when the first version of the app is released, it actually won't even show our locally maintained data. It will show the Google map or the Apple map, depending on which platform your device is. Then sometime over the course of the next 12 months, probably earlier than later, it will be updated to consume the exact same map data that is in the 911 center. So like I said, it is very much under development. There's still a lot to come. There's going to be the potential of discussing a lot of different options for what maps need to look like and what data might need to be available in the field as opposed to in the PSAP. All of that is future conversation we're looking forward to you guys participating in. But we wanted you to know this is coming, and there will also be a session about this at CAM. Then just a couple of quick training updates. The data maintainer training is going to be pre-conference at CAM. And if there is some specific topic that you want to make sure is addressed, please let me know that. Also on the horizon, we have training for GIS maintainers coming on the use of AT&T's public safety. I just repeated myself there. Public safety platform is what PSP means. This is the new location where MSAGs and telephone records are stored. All of your data is in there right now in terms of the data for the counties you maintain. But because it is maintained through GIS data, and because that is still a relatively, I hate to call it clunky because that sounds awful, but one company handles the GIS data and another company holds the MSAGs that come out of it and the telephone records. And because of that sort of two-company solution, not a lot of people have access to the PSP yet. However, we are moving through testing to get all of that with one company, and we are making some pretty serious progress. This testing has been going on for a while, and it's been much slower than we had hoped. But it does look like it is beginning to come to an end. And at that point, AT&T may offer standard training for PSP that would not take into account our GIS situation at all. So when that time comes, you may be asked by AT&T to attend the standard training, which is, I believe, an hour online. But we will definitely be offering specific training about how you will use PSP and how it fits into the Kansas NG911 program, and what you can expect from us going forward for your GIS data getting turned into telephone company MSAGs. So we will probably do that as a webinar, and if so, it will be recorded so that people can attend. I don't see this happening in the next few months or anything, just kind of wanted to let you know it was coming down the road. And we also have a user group meeting scheduled at CAM. So between all of this stuff, we have the data maintainer class, we have the user group meeting, and we have a couple of conference sessions related to 911. And I definitely encourage you to attend. CAM conference is always great, and we'd love to see you at the sessions we are holding.
I think a thing to note there too, to add on to Sherry's comments, the GIS maintainer class is a pre-conference class. So for that particular session, you need to register that you're attending, but there's not a registration fee to attend that class. So that's available on the CAM website right now. All the other sessions Sherry mentioned, the location technology and the responder app, things like that, those will be ongoing during the conference, as well as the user group. So we hope you'll attend and be able to watch some of these sessions, or come to some of these sessions, and then we can all, good time for us all to get together and talk about any questions you might have about data model or location technology or apps or whatever at the conference. And that is October 24th through 27th in Wichita this year. And just another reminder that you can always find information, whether it's documents, standards, links to the toolbox, whatever you're looking for on the DASC Hub site under the NG911 initiative, and also on the Kansas 911 Coordinating Council's website. So with that, I told you it was going to be kind of a short one today. That wraps it up for the day. If I have not seen any questions come through chat, so we'll just give it a second here to see either if you want to mute yourself or if you want to submit something on chat, we'll give you a chance to ask any questions you might have now that we're completed the slides. I'm not seeing anything pop up in chat. All right, well, as always, feel free to reach out to myself, Sherry, Will, with any questions you might have. We're always here to help. And we hope to see you all soon, especially at the CAM conference in October. So thank you very much for attending. Have a great day.